Welcome to the Creative Condition podcast, the show where I, Ben Talon, illustrator and writer, explore human creativity and invite people from the creative industry and far beyond to share their story of creativity, both the nature and the nurture, the chaos and the calm. Creativity is a fundamental pillar of human happiness, a vital ingredient in the solutions to all of our problems, but so often misunderstood. Little by little, I'm building an archive of valuable stories, experiences and tips to help you maximise yours. The show is supported by founding sponsor and B Corp, Illustration X. Take a look at their stunning range of illustrators and animators now at illustrationx.com. If you like the music for the show, it's by Dirty Freud, who you can listen to on Spotify and all good music streaming services.
Like almost every day or every week happens something. I think actually every day that fills you with sadness and sorrow, and you cannot express it with words anymore. But you can, if you see in a picture that can express this, you understand that this is it. You can share it, and it's going to be your feelings.
Today I'm speaking with Ukrainian craft illustrator, designer and design community activist Olya Protasova. Olya's story is incredibly inspiring and should serve to remind us all that freedom is not guaranteed. We discuss creativity in times of conflict at length. I warn you now that we touch upon sensitive topics, but if you are able, I hope you'll dig in with us and borrow just a modicum of the strength Olya and the Ukrainian people have shown us is possible throughout this challenging time. Hello and welcome to the show. My name is Ben Talon. This is the Creative Condition podcast. How are you? I hope you're good. I hope you're doing well. I hope your week is going smoothly. A big thank you for the response to Simon Schrödinger, which was episode... Well, it was Creative Stories number 3, even though I labelled it as Creative Stories number 2 for the best part of the week. I do apologise. I had been a sleep-deprived few weeks. The kids have been acting up. We're not going to go into detail there. Nighttime shenanigans, 3 eye bags under each eye. That's all you need to know. I hope you're well. Thank you for the lovely feedback. I really had fun recording that episode. It was very real. It was a very candid deep dive into the mind of an overthinker through the context of a spiral of thought triggered by a missing cat poster just down our road. A shorter one, a fun one. I'm breaking up the guest episodes with these creative stories and the creative questions. So again, if you have any questions, get them to me. I have a few in the bank of those that are going to be coming up very soon. Massive thank you to the founding sponsor of this show, illustration and animation agency Illustration X. You can check out their fantastic global range of illustration and animation portfolios right now at illustrationx.com, and maybe go and check out the news site for the inside scoop on, the projects, the clients, how these things run, what the story is. It's a really nice little window into the illustration industry. So this is without doubt one of the most challenging, inspiring, real conversations I've ever had. It was an utter honour to have it. Olya has shown strength, along with the Ukrainian people, beyond my comprehension. Me, who doesn't have to live the horrors that the Ukrainian people are going through right now. We see them from afar. Do you know what I mean? Newspapers, televised news, social media. We can connect, we can try to empathise through those channels, but I believe that ultimately we are disconnected in a sense that it is borrowed. It's borrowed horror. And for highly sensitive people like me, it can still be very, very tough, whether that's the conflict in Gaza, whether that's what's happening right now as we approach 2 years since Russia invaded Ukraine. That's not when the war started, by the way. It's 2014, as we're going to touch upon in our conversation today. But 2022 was the full-scale invasion. And it's utterly horrendous. But I believe that creativity is a glue that bonds us in a way that these news channels cannot, that social media cannot. I think that creativity is one of humanity's fundamental pillars, as you will very well know if you're a regular listener to this show. I have waxed lyrical for over 200 episodes now about the joys and the value and the necessity of creativity for a happy life. But it has many sides to it, you know, as we're going to learn today. We're going to discuss creativity in conflict. I did mention at the top of the show this is going to be quite a tough conversation on many levels. How could it not be? We are talking with a person who is in the midst of a war, an actual war. Something that I've never had to truly fear or taste or smell. And I wanted to have this conversation because there is so much resilience and so much strength and character being shown on a daily basis as these poor people caught in the war feel and show. They feel sadness, sorrow, anger, so many emotions, such a broad spectrum on any given day that it is truly heartbreaking. But here's why I wanted to talk to Olya in particular. So Olya is a listener to this podcast, and she got in touch. She's a regular correspondent. She'll give lovely praise on episodes, which is a joy. But it was a Saturday morning, and I was tagged in a post on LinkedIn, and I hate to admit that. I went on LinkedIn on a Saturday. but I did. I replied to a message, and I saw that I'd been tagged in a status. And Olya said, I don't have the exact words in front of me right now because I wanted to retell it in my own way, in my memory of it, because it was such a touching moment. Olya said that she listened to episode 199 of this podcast with Stefan Sagmeister. Now, I think Stefan is inarguably one of the most famous graphic designers of all time, if such a thing exists. We're a very insular, nerdy industry. So to us guys, that currency is absolutely right up there. But I think outside of it, you know, if you talk about graphic designers to someone who's never been in our industry, they don't really know. That's beside the point. Olya had heard my conversation with Stefan about long-term thinking, about his book, Now is Better. And she'd taken it to a Ukrainian publisher and had managed to get a deal for the book. And, you know, full translation, and she said that we will continue to make and create and produce books like this, even though we know that at any moment Russia could bomb us. And this isn't, this isn't about me. I played such a tiny part in that happening. But all the same, to know that while loved ones are being lost, creative people and professionals are still making and creating and using their talents to aid the cause at this time, and that this little podcast brought this book to Olya's attention and now it exists in Ukraine. I cannot tell you what that means, because I studied and I wrote about graphic activism on my dissertation, because to me, I always was in love with the power of visual communication, of design, of music, of the arts and creativity, to touch the soul and to transcend language and to do something that language and action can't always do. So to learn that was mind-blowing to me. So I immediately messaged Olya to thank her, and I said, would you be interested in having a conversation about this? Because it is truly mind-blowing to me that this is a thing. So she said, yeah, straight away. You know, the whole thing at the moment is, I think that the creative community who are in a position to still create, who don't have to go and fight on the front lines, which is not everyone, by the way. This is a sad reality of what's going on. They are using every scrap of their talent, of their energy, of their anger, and all those emotions to create work, to celebrate Ukrainian culture, to share news, spread the word, to protest, to rebel. All of the incredible things that any form of activism can make happen. And a week or so before this chat, Olya sent me some references to Ukrainian history and culture. And among them was this beautiful project called Abetka 33. And this is a typographic Ukrainian alphabet with a piece of Ukrainian history or culture for each character. So for 2 days I didn't resurface after that. I had to push everything back, ran tight on some deadlines, because I just got sucked so far down into this Ukrainian history rabbit hole, reading about hundreds of years worth of adversity and conflict, simultaneously angry at the worst of humanity, but also inspired by the sheer resilience of Ukrainian people throughout their history. If you want to see this project, which I absolutely insist that you do, you can go and check out what, in my opinion, is a perfect piece of activism over at abetka.com, and I'm spelling that ABETKAUA.com. Beautifully designed project, wonderful snapshot of Ukrainian history, but utterly heartbreaking to see just how much bullshit these guys have had to handle in their history. And that makes their history altogether different to ours, not in the sense of what's happened, but in terms of its place in society. You know, I think of growing up and my granddad telling war stories and being aware of the Second World War, but seeing this archaic almost footage and feeling very disconnected, very distant from that, like it was irrelevant to me. Whereas in Ukraine, I think the sheer ubiquity of aggression and conflict and attempts to wipe out their language and, you know, their identity in so many ways makes that different. And we talk about that today, Olya and I. We talk about how it almost shrinks down the timeline to something that is more, you know, is less linear, and it's almost more layered, almost interdimensional. So Olya has been a constant champion of a creative community who have shown bravery on a different level to reconfigure and to use their talents on many levels to fight for their place in the world, their right to exist, to inspire change, to celebrate what they hold dear. And thanks to her efforts, I discovered all this incredible work that I hadn't come across before. Work of the designer Artem Gusev, who redesigned the iconic Artemzil salt packaging, supplier of salt to all of Ukraine for 140 years. And on this package he replaced the world's salt with strength after the factory was destroyed by Russian shelling. And in doing so, after a year of war, he helped to get salt back on the shelves. And in doing so, he helped fund the country's drone program through the sales of these limited edition salt packaging. Can you believe that? That is just so powerful, impactful. You know, it makes you want to follow suit, and that's another great property of graphic activism and creativity. I found out that there's a character in the Ukrainian alphabet that is a soft quietening character, which in this Abetka 33 alphabet had been cleverly used to encourage a quiet moment of reflection for every man, woman and child lost to conflict in the current war, and all those that went before. I learned about Olya's beautiful plasticine tribute to the horrifying Holodomor genocide. Read up on it. It's on the Abetka alphabet. Horrific forced starvation of heartbreaking numbers of people. I learned about the writer and poet Ivan Franko, who survived 3 arrests and near starvation to keep writing. And I encountered the beautifully bright and powerful art of Maria Primachenko. So I'm going to ask each of my listeners to go and follow Olya on LinkedIn or Instagram Spelling Olya, Olha. You can see it on the title of the episode for the full name. And to help Olya and her people, I want you to go and read about the Abeka 33 alphabet, about the history of Ukraine. You'll be inspired, and you'll find ways to contribute your freedom and your talents to this vital cause. We talk about that today, so listen in first, and Olya's going to, touch upon some very easy ways to help by sharing the work of Ukrainian creatives, supporting their work, their cause. And don't stop there. Be active. We have great power in these skills of ours. As Olya says, all of what we have can be taken away in a moment's notice. This could be our country that's getting bombed. That's the reality of the world we live in. That's heavy. It's heavy to think about. It's grotesque to have to live, and that's what is going on in their lives right now in Ukraine. When the liberty of one group of people is taken away, it rarely stops there. History tells us that much, I think. But that's enough from me. I'm going to bring you one of the richest conversations I'll ever have with one of the bravest, most inspiring people I have the honour of calling a friend. Enjoy? Does that feel like the right word? Yeah, do you know I'm going to say enjoy? Because I think there's a lot to take from this. There's a lot of heart to take, and a lot of steel that certainly got put into me. I came out of one of the cafes that I was researching in on my laptop here in Salisbury, where I live. And I'll never forget walking out. And I've been reading about the hedgehogs. Hedgehog is you've probably seen them, the big iron street furniture that is anti-tank street furniture. It's like a big, almost, it's a crisscross, big iron bars. I don't know if you've seen them, but look them up. I came out onto the street here in Salisbury afterwards, and I genuinely stopped just outside the doors of the cafe that I had left and just looked around and felt incredibly grateful because I didn't have to see them in the road. I didn't have to look up. I didn't have to listen out for air alerts. That's the reality of what these people are going through. So when you know that, take a moment just to consider the creativity that is still coming out of that country. I'm struggling for words, so I'm going to stop prattling. But I hope you do enjoy this. I hope you get inspired by this, even as a percentage as much as I did. That's enough. Let's get on with it.
Everything is okay now, but nobody knows what's going to be tomorrow.
Of course.
Yeah. So it's like this. Yeah. Nobody's really safe.
Yeah, of course.
And you cannot sit in a bomb shelter all day.
No, of course. I mean, I guess that's the thing, isn't it? Is finding the resilience to, because you have to live life. You have to live life, don't you?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And
let's talk about, I don't know, where do we start? It's interesting because, I always start with childhood, and we will get there. But I feel like we need to start, I don't know, where shall we start?
I want to start, first of all, to be saying thank you to all people who supported Ukraine and still supporting, and I hope will be both Ukraine and Ukrainians, people in general and people in particular that you probably meet or you meet online. Just a huge thank you to you all, to you, Ben, to your colleagues, to organizations, to everyone, governments. It means the world to us, and I'm glad I have my moment to say that.
I can't even start to fathom what that means because I haven't had to live through what you are currently living through,
Yeah.
So I can only see that I can only compare on such a small scale,
Yeah. Yeah. We read about such stuff in history books, actually. Yeah. All the time, in news.
Yeah.
Something from history, like war, really?
Yeah. Well, this is the thing. I was thinking about this, is while I was researching this podcast, I was, I've kind of given, I'm behind on lots of things in the best possible way because the links that you sent were fantastic. And I ended up down the rabbit hole of reading so much about Ukrainian history. And I'll be honest, I had no idea that you guys have, culturally have had to suffer so much adversity over hundreds of years. I had no idea. And I was with each new event that I read about, I was like, oh my God, like this is,
Yeah,
this is not a new thing. I mean, it's
yeah,
intense, of course, but this is not new, and that's sad.
yeah. It's not new. The oppression which Ukrainians are facing, and this denial that we are kind of exist, it's not new at all.
Mm,
Like really, it's very old thing. We are saying that the full scale war is 2 years, but real war, Russian Ukrainian war is 10 years old. But actually, it's 100 years old fight,
mhm,
and even more. Like actually, we are referring to events that very frequently, but that were 100 years ago.
mm.
Yeah.
And in terms of your life, how
Hmm.
how familiar have you been with conflict? And because I'm right in thinking 1991 was the kind of declaration of independent Ukraine.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm just you said about resilience, and I was thinking, and about that you said right now. I was thinking, yeah, Ukrainians are very resilient because we had really, we really had a difficult life. For example, when I was two, it was Chernobyl catastrophe. And my mom and me and my sister, we became refugees for the first time because we were in Kiev, and we went nowhere. Like it was chaos, and people were trying to just take kids away. And then Soviet Union collapsed in 1991, and it was a good thing actually. It was also not protests also, and this protests on main square Maidan, and yeah, it collapsed. But for us, it was a very big economical. Uh, I don't know how to say it. It was economical hole. It was economical disaster. 90s were very bad for us. And, huge poverty, and yeah, it was. We were kids, of course. We were like, okay, it's fine. But for our parents, yeah, when I'm thinking about 90s, I say, oh my gosh, how did they manage all that? And it's true for, I don't know, 99% of Ukrainians, probably. But then things gradually become better and better, and uh, like Ukraine was developing, but then 2004 Orange Revolution again, and crisis again, and then financial crisis of 2008, and well, also bad things around. And then 2013, also revolution on dignity and start of war in 2014. And I remember when pandemic hit, Ukrainians said like, and I remember it was around the world, we were hearing like, oh, so bad, economic is gonna shrink, it's everything's gonna crash. But in Ukraine, we said, really? Okay, we can manage. We saw worse things. So, kind of, Ukrainians are really resilient people, and I think kind of all of us, like my generation. I mean, like generation of my parents, they saw really tough bad thing. Generation of my grandparents and our older grandparents, they saw war um, and and like Holodomor and like lots of bad things. So and now our kids are in situation of this war. So yeah, but what is in my opinion important about Ukrainians, since we can manage, like we will manage
Mhm.
somehow some way with help of like world community, because we are just like that. We don't give up. We unite, work together, help each other, and we know that we will survive and we will manage, because we saw, we have examples of that. And yeah, that's how I feel about it.
So to go just a little deeper then into your childhood. So I
Yeah,
mean, refugee at
yeah,
2 years old. That's profound. That's going to shape
yeah,
you in
yeah.
a.
I kind of remember remember this. I remember this because we went to Riga, to Latvia, and then we went to North Caucasus, to Russia and to Georgia, where it was complicated journey for my mother. But to me, the main thing is uh, this this strength of my parents, that they were like they were going through this, and I'm kind of finding uh, power and like support in this. They yeah,
Mm.
like this. For me, it's a story about okay, bad things happening, let's work it out.
And at what
Yeah.
point? At what point? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
okay, so all children create.
Yeah,
That's what we do as humans.
yeah.
How, what did that look like in your childhood environment? I mean, what are your earliest memories of creating, and is it something that was fostered in your home
Oh,
in your home environment?
oh, sure, yes. Yeah, my parents are both scientists. My dad is a freshwater biologist, and my mom is biochemist.
Oh wow.
And but also they are art lovers. So they were. My dad is amateur painter, artist, and they were always on art exhibitions. And I was born and raised in Kiev, which is main city. And of course, we have and always had, even in hardest time, we had art exhibitions and uh, like artistic life. And so from my old childhood, I was taken to the to these art exhibitions and museums, and yeah, every Saturday there was a museum visit. It was like under lectures for kids, and so for me it was very natural thing to start drawing. And my dad, he's drawing all the time. He's like every day he makes sketches, diaries with sketches and paintings on weekends. And um, every weekend we were every weekend we were in nature. I mean, in forest, fields, or river, or somewhere. And he was painting there, small study. And so all I was painted with him from, I don't know, 6 years old. I was painting with oils. So yeah, it was very like my life. So I all my life I was happy that all my life I'm doing only art, illustration, lettering things. So I never done anything like that, and only now I'm involved in community things. I work as a project manager for NGO, which makes projects for Ukrainian design community. So
Yeah, I mean, and your role in all of this has been, really inspiring to me, and to see the kind of rallying of the Ukrainian creative community. And
yeah,
the reason, there are many reasons I wanted to have this conversation today, but the
yeah,
the kind of trigger point for me was the post that you made about Stefan's book.
mm-hmm.
So for the
Sure,
listeners, it was just, for me, this was a Saturday morning. I sat down, my kids running amok, and I see
yeah,
your post about, how you managed to get Stefan's book to a publisher in Ukraine, and
yeah, but
Stefan
yeah,
Sagmeister's book being Now is Better. And to me, that it was your statement about continuing to make and the continuation of creation in the face of this war.
yeah,
And that to me was just, that kind of hit me for six. I thought that was, to me, that was profound, and to have played
yeah,
some tiny part in that. This is not about me, so that's not the point. But
yeah,
it validated so much of my belief
yeah.
about creativity's role as a human necessity. So this is something I wanted to disclaim really early in this conversation, is that this is not about pretty pictures. This Pretty pictures are
Mm-hmm.
still important, and that's something I want to touch upon later on. But first and foremost, to me, I always believed from my late teens that creativity played a key part in happiness for human beings. It sounds like you and your family were well aware of this and embraced that from what you just told me. Um, but let's talk about why sending Stefan's book and still fighting this battle for creativity and growth was and is important.
Oh yeah, just to mention, it was really as you described, but I want to just to mention that it was really so. So I'm listening to your podcast, how you communicate your conversation with Stefan Legmeister, and I'm really writing to a publisher who made first another book about beauty by Stefan, and he said like, "Oh, so it is out already? Yeah, sure. Yeah, okay. I'm writing to rights owner right now, like that." And it ended up that I think they made a deal, and also Stefan's gonna make all Ukrainian inscriptions in the book. Is what I know.
Oh wow, okay.
Uh, yeah, so he requested all that. So and Stefan have been in Kiev, and yeah, I've been on his. It was a film screening, and yeah, I think he enjoyed it a lot. Yeah, so I just saw how yeah he just saw many things, talked to many people, and yeah. So we hope to see him again, of course. Uh, yeah, and also about want to tell a small story about how things are in Ukraine a little bit. Like everything is a little bit do it yourself. Was a story about the same publisher. It's his name is Konstantin Kazhmiaka, and the publishing house is Arthas, and they made books. It's publishing house and printing house. They printing it beautifully in Kiev, and they did books for about art, artists, and etc. And one day in 2017, probably, I'm seeing that Derek Brazel from Association of Illustrators. He's posting on Twitter like that his book becoming a successful illustrator is going to be in Chinese. And so I'm writing on Twitter to Derek Brazel, like, "Dear Derek, what about? I didn't know him, like no connection. What if your book is going to be published in Ukraine?" He said, "Oh, of course, sure, please, this email." So I'm asking my friends, like, who, and at that time we had like close to zero books for designers and illustrators. Imagine it's very hard to imagine because the problem were a lot of books in Ukraine came from Russia in Russian, and they had really around like before 2013 they actually had our market like 80% books was in Russian, and of course all books on design and illustration were in Russian from Russia, or some books were Russian books or something, some export. And so in at that time we had no one. I mean, we didn't know whom to ask and how to ask. How can designers initiate this like publishing books for designers? It sounds crazy, right? You cannot just go to publisher and say like, "Here's the list, please buy rights, translate, publish these books. We need them." It sounds like, really? Are you serious? Kind of, we propose, on behalf of illustrator community, I proposed to print his book. And it was a kind of a collaboration between the publishing house and community, because people were happy to have a book about illustration finally, about working as illustrator. They pre-ordered the book and they really made it happen. Like they financed this project, and Derek and Joe, they came to Kiev and they had lecture with us, and it was fantastic. And this started the whole series for books for illustrators and designers. And now this house publishing a really lot of books for us. And we still, when we find some good book, we just can go to them and ask them to do it. But in return, we are promote it in our community, and of course we buy in their books, and so it goes like this. Also, I'm not a book expert at all, but I've checked, especially for this talk, that when war started, this book publishing in Ukraine in general dropped, of course, almost half, because the major book factories are located in Kharkiv region, which is very close to Russia, and it was shelled almost every day, and now also too. But in like 2 years ago, it was really, really. I mean, in the beginning of the war, it was really, really hard, and so they kind of stopped working. But gradually they recovered, and now in Ukraine, like a lot of books are published. Of course, new books of any books of people like. New books, I mean, big books about war, books about analytical, books about history, and books about art also.
Because Stefan's book, of course, is called Now is Better.
Mm-hmm.
And it's
Yes.
kind of a, it's encouraging people to step back from the kind of social media tendency to be very doom and gloom. Now, that has to be caveated to say that you are living through a war just now. So why? So the question is, why does such a book retain its appeal even at this time?
Yeah, you know what? I'll give an example. My grandmother lived through. I mean, now it's better. My mother lived through Golodomor. It was artificial famine when food was taken from them, and millions of people died. But people in the West didn't know about that.
I read that it's still not officially acknowledged as a genocide, which is unthinkable.
It was genocide, but no, and people there were journalists who tried to tell people, like, look, in this country they're killing people by just taking their food away, and my family lived through that, and so I'm part of this story. But no one knew about it, and there was no information. And now when we can share what's going on, and every simple person can share what is going on now, I think the fact that information, we can spread it, we can talk about it. In this point now it's better, and of course Ukraine has such a support. Like 100 years ago we didn't have such support. Who knows, maybe 100 years ago when Ukraine first became independent, like maybe if we had support from other countries, that Russia would, it's very complicated to say in English, would have not taken over. Sorry, guys.
No, I know, God, no.
It's okay.
The listeners will know your English is better than mine, so that's fine. But that was exactly my hope, my feeling, when I saw this, and it like I said before, it encouraged me, and it kind of validated this feeling that I've always had, and it's why I continue to do this work, to try to paint a picture of creativity that isn't just the incorrect assumption that it is to be artistically gifted, because it's really not. There, you mentioned something there that's really, I think, is really important, and it was about the community coming together to get these books published and to work together.
Sure.
I interviewed Craig Oldham going back a while, and his parents were involved in the miners' strike in the UK in 1984 and 85. So big strikes going on for a year, to the detriment of the family's finances, when they wanted the government at the time wanted to close the coal mines. And Craig put together a beautiful book called In Loving Memory of Work. And it was all the visual graphics from the miners' strike, all the placards made by the people in the homes and everything else. And he termed it as kitchen table creativity, which I thought was magic and really wonderful. And to a degree, that's at play there in what you've described. And I guess that has a broader role in times of conflict, does it not?
We do that. We do that. And also, I was thinking also about connections between Ukraine and UK. And you know what? These cities where war started after annexation of Crimea, Luhansk and Donetsk. Guess who were founder of the cities?
Is this the Welshman that?
Yeah,
Yeah,
one Welshman and one, sorry, yeah, Hughes. Yeah, one was Hughes from, and it's well known because the city of Donetsk was first, they called him Hughes, and it was Yuzivka. And Luhansk, city of Luhansk was also founded by Welshmen.
yeah,
So they came here and founded factories. But now, of course, nobody really talking about them because like kind of yeah, but I found this very interesting that people at that time uh, they were coming everywhere and making an enterprise, and it was entrepreneurial thing. And yeah,
yeah.
so yeah, and of course, of course I'm stating, and I think everybody agrees that Luhansk and Donetsk are Ukraine, and Crimea also is also Ukraine.
Mm,
And yeah, it's of course like kind of our neighbors. We call them northern neighbors. Russians stole them, but it doesn't become theirs.
mm. I made some notes on kind of what I think creativity can
Hmm.
become, and you're better positioned to tell me whether I am accurate in your current situation. So I made a list, and it's got coping mechanism, collective voice,
Yeah,
resistance, tool for vital information sharing, and also the
yeah,
innate human need to tell stories. All of these
yeah.
things, I would guess, are important in the current situation that Ukrainians find themselves in.
Sure, sure. Yeah, yeah. Also, it's interesting. Yeah, you're right about stories. The first, if we was thinking about creativity in times of war and artists and designers and so on, of course, first we think about communication. I remember they war started. We just our family paused at the time. We have our youngest child was a year and a half. So yeah, we have we tried to figure out what we're gonna do, what is our next actions, and we took a pause. And I was sitting and drawing with finger on my phone on some drawing app, something like "Stand with Ukraine," and was posting it online. And so did like so many people because we were um we understood that, for example, for me, I cannot go and fight because I have a very small child. But my task in this situation was to inform, was to do this visual communication. Even I wasn't able to open my computer and see it and make nice poster, help Ukraine, etc. But I was able to draw something with my finger, so I did, and so many people did, and Ukrainian designers and illustrators, they do such a powerful works, unbelievable. Was It was incredible. I remember someone said that they reached next level working with meaning, with senses. It's really, really fantastic work. And also, as a person who works for community, I did what I did in the beginning of war when I was totally not able to work myself. Um, but I posted on Instagram that I have a list of Ukrainian illustrators, um, and I can share this list for example, editorial art directors who need these illustrators to talk about war. And this post was viral somehow. I think it's neither that or some big media reposted it, and so I got around 100 or maybe more requests for this list. And so I just I just shared this list of Ukrainian illustrators who can do good editorial, and they really did. I think it worked out.
That's
Yeah.
incredible. Oh, yeah, and that's beautiful, and that's and that there's a lot to be concerned about when it comes to social media, but there are huge
Hmm.
upsides, and
Yes.
when you hear stories like that, it's it speaks of um collective spirit. And you and I wouldn't be having this conversation today was it not for the kind of social glue that creativity
Yeah.
is.
Sure.
And it's a common language, isn't it? It's a species active trait. I think that's really important to recognize, and
Yeah.
such a vital tool for all those reasons, but even just through simple acts like you said there about it, the whole kitchen table creativity thing. It doesn't have to be accomplished and professionally polished.
Absolutely.
It
Yeah.
can be just as beautiful, but it can be also functional. It is, again, it's you work with what you have, and I think there's beauty in that too.
I agree totally, and it's very like everyone can do their thing, their impact, and draw a picture that will tell a story better than the article probably. And also, I saw that with work, I follow work of hundreds of Ukrainian illustrators. Sometimes they do work about their feelings, and they publish this because they just it's just their, it's not like not commissioned work, just they are feeling this way about some particular events, for example. And people they this work, the illustration resonates with people so much that they are reposting it because it's also theirs. Like because sometimes it's such what's going on in Ukraine. It's we are feeling anger and sorrow and sadness so much that it's become very hard to express in words. You cannot like almost every day or every week happens something. I think actually every day that fills you with sadness and sorrow, and you cannot express it with words anymore. But you can, if you see in a picture that can express this, you understand that this is it. You can share it, and it's going to be your feelings. Yeah. Also, I remember I before we kind of begin this conversation on LinkedIn, I posted in comment very expressive lettering that Ukrainian designers did. They are really close to what you do, really, really expressive, but they are about war. They are actually mostly red and black. Yeah, I remember that. I remember that.
Yeah, I remember that
Yeah,
too.
so because I was feeling that it's important to show what people here are doing, because of course now we don't have such media coverage as it was before, and it's
I believe that it's vital for every human to have, and that what you described there I term as emotional creativity. It's not kind of meeting a client demand. Of course, there can be emotional creativity involved in that process, but ultimately, it's saying something that is inside of us and feelings and about the world and our interpretation of that. And I think that no matter the situation, if we don't use that even in the smallest of ways, it's not healthy to keep these feelings inside and to keep them to ourselves, because we are social creatures. But even more so in your situation, to when you're dealing with such a volume and intensity of emotions, no one can keep that inside. And if you do, that's not going to end well.
Yeah, but also, you know what? Of course, it's we can blame someone, but we're hearing now that people say like, "Oh, these Ukrainians, you are annoying with your with your pictures and your all the time you are saying like with your anger." Like we're seeing that, unfortunately.
Really?
Like yeah, really.
Oh,
It's
dear.
like are you like, you are like Ukrainians, you're so negative. Like
Oh my
yeah,
God.
and it's we can see it on Twitter, for example, for some people like
Yeah.
like guys. Yeah, and uh, yeah, we see it. And but for example, me, it's very hard to do something. I work with plasticine. I love some cheerful colors. I love beautiful stuff, beautiful letters, but I cannot do that now. I cannot do, and I of course I want to do positive stuff, but actually I cannot do anything not really connected with Ukraine, with war, with. I can do stuff connected with future rebuilding of Ukraine. I can work with that, but all I do and all I think about is my country. I just can't help it.
Of course, how could you not?
Yeah,
It would almost be strange if you did. I think it's,
yeah.
um, I mean, one thing I did see you mention, and it's quite a heavy topic, but it was about,
Mm-hmm.
about people like you and I, designers and creative people going to war to actually fight.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I think this is something really important for people to be aware of. This isn't,
absolutely.
this isn't a case of, you could choose to go and make art, or, there's not much,
Yes,
there's not much
yes.
choice involved in this, is there?
Yes, that's true. And let's face it, go fight and die
Mm,
or be injured. Yeah, because everyone in Ukraine has friends, relatives, loved ones, someone who are there, and I think everyone has someone who is killed.
mm,
From our community, we have also people who organized events together with us and became a combat medics or soldiers, or both men and women. And yeah, and what we, of course, it's uh, very hard. And what us uh, ordinary people like uh, can do, we can organize these donations, donate ourselves, organize events with intention to collect money and buy, for example, drones, the simplest thing, or buy something for drones, buy old used car and yeah, give them, or lots of things. So that's how we deal with this. We donate. We
mm.
organize donations and donate. It's our kind of everyday activity to do
Yeah.
that. And also there are this donation is also became unintentionally kind of creative activity, because people are trying to invent new ways to uh, um, bring attention to their we I don't know how to translate this word, because collection, I don't know, money collection. Yeah, also about people in the war, artists who are now soldiers. My friend and colleague and community organizer, leader, Sashko Komyahov, a brilliant illustrator, absolutely amazing. He's comic artist, and he made his graphic novel, and now he is on the front line or somewhere, because we don't really know. It's kind of not allowed to say. And he's drawing military life there. Also, another brilliant illustration, Sergei Baidukov. He also he asks for permission, I think, like journalists, to go there to the front lines, and he's making also live drawings about that. I know it's called war art, but we didn't have that before. It was very new thing for us. I know that in UK, in US, there are exhibitions, and I think people are studying this and so on. But yeah, but people became war artists, and also there are people who work who make design for military. I mean, communication design.
Yeah.
There is a special typeface and a few typefaces that that are used for military purpose, and one was developed on examples of old graphics, old letters. It's better to show it visually. And another is new, developed by Dmytro Rostvortsev. It's very prominent Ukrainian typeface designer. It's exactly like a font for armored forces.
Mm,
And also, it's very interesting this creativity in creativity, design and engineering, creativity in building new kind of, let's say, new kinds of drones, for example, because they build in and design in really different kinds of drones now. I think Ukraine is kind of leader in this now. And we don't see everything, of course, because it's kind of secret information. But sometimes we see, and it's like, oh, guys, really, you did that? And they really, people become these designers, engineers when they understand the what they need to do, what is purpose, and they design in new, absolutely new kind machines that can fly, can, for example, drive like remote cars, marine drones that can swim in the water. So I think, yeah, it's when I see this, I say, oh, no, unbelievable what you did.
Yeah.
And we just try to support these people with donations, and when they need something, we can.
And such bravery, like the war artists. I think that's astoundingly brave. It's I'm interested in so before the conflict started in 2014, that's right.
Yeah, it war started with the annexation of Crimea and Russian intervention on Donbass region in the Donetsk and Lugansk. Yeah.
And before that, so I'm interested in within the kind of creative community prior to this. What was the mood and energy like? And I'm in no way comparing Ukrainian people to Belarusian people, but I was able to visit Belarus the Minsk International Book Fair when my first book came out, and I didn't know what to expect. I knew very little about Belarus. This was just an exciting opportunity to go to a new country for me.
Sure.
And I made lifelong friends there because they treat me wonderfully, and what I very quickly picked up on was this inner strength and this determination to build an identity that wasn't Soviet. So as I was shown around the streets, there was a lot of Soviet architecture, and to me as a let's say stupid Brit who's come here without much of a background, in the nicest way. Oh, that's a cool building. That's an interesting building. And quite quickly I could see the kind of almost fire in the eyes of some of the people that were showing me around. They didn't like what this represented in the history. And then, I was taken around these design studios and art studios, and I was doing an exhibition there that had all just happened very organically. Much in the way that you described with the books, it was kind of a case of, he's interested in doing things. Let's pull everyone together and enable this. But everyone that I spoke to, there was a quiet strength and resilience. And only as I got into my trip did I start to detect that people they were reluctant to speak about the political state of affairs. But within them was this ferocity, and people in the studios told me that the workspace could be closed down at any moment, or it could, be taken away, and again, they were working under these circumstances that were completely alien to me. And the strength of those people, it took me some time when I came back, weeks, to kind of the high energy that I came back with, having seen this and tasted this, and it was just completely inspiring to me. So I guess my question is this something that you can relate to, and is this something that you that was there in Ukrainian culture?
Partly yes, partly no, because in Ukraine it was much more freedom than in Belarus. We had some element of dictatorship, but not that element. In the Belarus, it's huge. I've been to Belarus many times as visiting friends or traveling, just exploring country. So in Ukraine, it was much more freedom all the time. It was tough when before 2013, Yanukovych really tried to make Ukraine kind of dictatorship and make it this union with Russia and all that, and because revolution started. But yeah, in Ukraine, it was we were just we were under very big influence from as Belarusian designers. We were under very big influence of Russian design community also, and yeah, it was very normal to have these connections. Now I kind of regret that. I think I didn't saw nothing bad in it, but now I think, yeah, I should have be more careful with that. We should have uh, we should have started earlier to build our own communities, to initiate this project, to do more really, because when war started in the 2014, we really kind of woke up and we said, like, we really can do everything ourselves. We don't really need this I don't know, um, kind of not guidance, but we don't need this book. We can kind of get together and make books for ourselves. We don't need this majority of Russian books. We don't need these conferences. We can do it ourselves. Yeah, I wish we done it before. But before, in for example, in 2010, let's say, it was all right to have common, I don't know, space to, um, I mean, for designers to look at work of each other, to go to conferences, to invite to festivals each other, and so on. Yeah, so but I would say about myself personally, I gradually cut all connections to all my colleagues there, and I don't really care what they are doing, and I just focused on things we can do.
Hmm.
And yeah, so
Yeah.
for me it's like that, and for many people, for many Ukrainians it's also like that. Let's not really look at them, because we have much better examples. Actually, we can watch people in, let's say, in Poland, for example, what they are doing, and yeah, have them as great example, like,
Hmm.
at least, and other countries.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's a Ben, wait, I'll just have something to say. You interviewed one wonderful man, John Newbegin.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's really great. And when he was talking about Ukraine, it was in the program of British Council about creative industries. So it was recent talk, and he said that very wonderful. He noticed that Ukrainian culture became much more important for Ukrainians we start a war, and it's really true. We just, for us it's natural thing. It's like, really, we have so much. And I also think it's because we saw that all this is so fragile. Someone can really come and take everything you have away, your language, your culture, your history, because Russians are rewriting history. And yeah, and so we need to put more efforts to protect this.
Yeah, we do, and I would say that everyone does, because there's great complacency just now. I think in the
Hmm.
UK, there's so many people divided by, very calculated policies and plays by a very irresponsible government at the moment. That are just point scoring by dividing people. And I
Hmm.
think we have to be really careful and use this example to understand that it could happen to any of us at any time. You know. But speaking of history, so this was something, you sent me the beautiful project, the
Hmm.
alphabet, the Ukrainian alphabet, and
Yes.
there was a historical story of
Yes.
importance behind every single one, and it just swallowed 2 of my days in the best possible
Oh
way.
yeah, mine too. Yeah.
And it was stunning,
Absolutely.
just stunningly designed, so interactive and just
Yeah.
everything about it I thought was and I considered this a perfect piece of activism because
Yes.
it's a very quiet, positive activism in a sense. Would you agree?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's really condensed, like I love it so much. And I'm so proud of guys who did this. It was a few teams working on this alphabet, and I know a few of them, and some I don't, but really fantastic work.
And through this,
Yeah.
I learned so much, like I said earlier, about history. And you mentioned Holodomor and the
Yes.
horrible starvation
Yeah.
that happened
Yes.
there. So I'd love to touch upon your growing trident, your plasticine piece, which I thought was incredible.
Yeah.
And I'd love to just, hear about that and what that felt like for you, and what was the, like, tell us about the project.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Thank you so much. I'm actually, I don't feel myself, plasticine is, by the way, I'm making it right now when we are talking, because I'm doing this all the time when I'm knowing someone. Plasticine is, of course, it was invented for adults, but in England, in Bath. Second time, it was first time invented in Germany, but second time in England. And so it was invented for artists, but then Harwood, who was inventor and promoter and owner of this plant, he understood that probably it's better to market it for kids, I think, and it became like commonly known material for kids. And so it still has this vibe, and I was very hard for me to make this transition, making something serious with that, because like plasticine, making something like and it doesn't like doesn't sounds like, I don't know, but I'm making I was a ordinary graphic designer and illustrator. I was working like with common materials, but around 10 years ago, maybe more, I discovered that I can actually work part of time with some thing, not with pixels, not with curves, but with plasticine, then make photographs of them, then make them beautiful in Photoshop. And so I'm now mostly more working on doing only this. But anyway, even if I can do anything with plasticine, I was not thinking about myself as a good person to working with such a serious subject. And it was before my friend Mykola Kovalenko, a prominent Ukrainian designer who makes poster every day since start of war. He's really great designer and fantastic. He's fantastically working with ideas. Imagine for 2 years making poster every day on one theme. I'll send a link. So he just approached me and asked, like, we're making exhibition. Will you make a poster for us? And I say, okay. And so I was, and still I was thinking, no, it's just too serious for me. I'm not that good in working with meaning. But then I just started doing something and came with this idea. Yeah, but still, I think that like hundreds of people are much better than me working with these Ukrainian identity things. Yeah, so I admire them, too much, and yeah, I'm just trying, I'm just learning, doing this.
But the piece was beautiful, and what does the trident represent?
Trident? What trident represents? It's very how to say, historians argue about that. It was a symbol of in ancient medieval Kiev Rus state. It was a symbol of this prince, if I'm not mistaken, Prince Volodymyr. It was his stamp. And people say that it represents a bird in flight. But also it some people say that word freedom or voля is hidden inside it. So if you kind of, I don't know how to say it, if you deconstruct it, you can see four letters, V, O, L, A, which is in Ukrainian means in the same time freedom and will.
Mm-hmm.
So there really is such letters, and so also, but also it's just theory that a word is hidden in trident.
Mm.
So yeah, it's not that easy. It is a beautiful book. It's in Ukrainian, but it's in not kind of it publicly it's downloadable, so you can download fantastic books with very big investigation about trident 1,000 years ago and 100 years ago when it was invented by Vasily Krichevsky, and now and so on. I can also give a link, and it's a beautiful book.
Yeah, it speaks to the character to have, you know, an exhibition to a previous tragedy in the midst of a contemporary one.
Yeah. We are referring on these events 100 years ago all the time. Yeah, all the time we are, like all these events of 1920s, 1930s, Second World War, and after, they are all connected for us, and we are thinking, talking, and reading about them all the time. It's all for us like living, continuing history. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really powerful. And another thing
Yeah.
that, you know, that really jumped out to me was the Slovo building. And
Yes.
the kind of,
Yes.
because yeah, I'm sure you've heard me say on the podcast, I'm constantly repeating this, but I always talk about art college and that collectivity, and the first time walking in there
Yeah.
after school and finding my people, and the joy that continues to give me. So when I read about the Slovo building, you know, it had that same thing. So I've got a description here, and it says it was buzzing with life, with residents creating their masterpieces side by side, visiting each other for tea, borrowing books on art and liqueurs, and sharing ideas right on the staircase. And then you get to what happened in the 1930s, where people were actually
Yes.
killed from there.
Yes.
And it's like,
Yes.
oh my God, poor
Oh,
people,
yeah.
and that history, you know.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
but something so sacred, even just selfishly to me, is that collective creative spirit. That's
Yes.
sacrilegious. And that's, I guess, you know, I'm right in thinking it's been shelled during this war too, the building.
Yes, it was.
Mm.
We don't know intentionally, because they shoot in Kharkiv, like what falls. They not really precise. Let's say it's very fast rockets which flies from short distance, and
Mm.
uh, it's very hard to protect Kharkiv from all that.
Yeah.
About these impressions of 1930s. So my family was taken their house.
Really.
Was just my grandfather was, he was clever. He earned money. He built a house for his family and for children. And one day, Soviets came and said, just get out. And my grandmother, who was a child, she remembers it, and like that was life like at that time, and that's why so many people left Ukraine.
Mm.
Like it was impossible to make things here, like let's say Sonia Delaunay. She was born in Ukraine, but she was taken when she was little,
Mm.
and many others. It was just very, very hard to work here. Or my example, Igor Sikorsky, inventor of helicopter, he started here, but it was just. And people who stayed, they was many of them were just killed, and important to remember them. Yeah, hard topic, very hard topic. I'm smiling because yeah, we need to yeah, but it's very hard, and actually I'm thinking about this frequently, and we discuss on this frequently in community.
Yeah. Yeah, because
Yeah,
in many ways, what the spirit of that collective gathering that we touched upon there, that is
yeah,
now what's happening, I guess, among you guys. No matter how disparate it becomes, that spirit is still present, isn't it? Even though it's not located
yes.
in one center.
I think it's very it's common for all people to mobilize and to work together when they face such things, because and we saw it around Ukraine when war started, and so many people like mothers with children were trying to leave. um, People on the border of Ukraine, in Poland, Romania, and Slovakia, for example, Hungary, they mobilized absolutely. They created. It wasn't like that. Like Ukrainians arrive and they are facing emptiness. No, they were met by hundreds of volunteers who were schools were turned schools near border were turned to these places where people can sleep, eat, and then someone is taking you somewhere further, so you can rest somewhere in someone's family. So when such bad things happening, like people somehow become like bees or ants.
Yeah.
They become self-organized. They don't wait somebody to tell them what to do. They are doing, bringing, helping, and all that. I think probably it was somehow like UK. It's pretty remote, remote, but somehow it happened also. Uh, um, People were offering houses, offering help, so much. Yeah, it's amazing.
We're a resourceful species, and it's almost it's sad that that has to happen before we do that almost,
Hmm.
but then
Yeah,
it's, we could talk forever about how, how do you find the
yeah,
middle, how do you
absolutely.
find the middle ground of that? How do you remain present and mindful when there isn't adversity? It's difficult, but adversity certainly has a way of rallying and bringing inventiveness, heart, compassion out of people. There's so many things. There was also the
Yeah,
projector, is it Projector Creative and Tech Foundation?
yeah, yeah, they are
I
fantastic.
thought that was
Yeah, absolutely.
if you could just tell us about that a little bit. I thought that was an incredible initiative.
This projector is just a school for design and design and many things, and design and software development, illustration, interactive design. Great. I'm a friend of with the um, founders, Misha Rybachuk and Sasha Trigub. They absolutely, I can recommend them for a talk. They can tell a lot about how to do this. Amazing people. They started just like school, private school for design, and I've been there as a teacher and student many times, and they just 9 years ago, I think they started, and they just very how to say it. People who people who see the future. It's not futurist, but they can visualize future and go ahead. They do so many things. They organize this study for women who, for example, were forced to leave home and now need remote jobs. So they organize study for them for the women to become designers, testers, software developers, UX designers. They working with Ministry of Education to make, for example, some products for education. I mean, in schools. So they are people full of ideas and very very great to implement them, and so we all love them. Yeah, and they are very great example. It's totally online school that teaches many profession in creative industries.
Again, and I think it's just another beautiful example of why your ants and bees analogy really works,
Yes,
because
absolutely. Yeah,
it's reconfiguring and coming together and cross-pollinating with
yeah,
skills. And I just think that's an example to all of
yeah,
us,
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah. And they, for example, they have their teachers have a program of mentoring, and you pay for mentoring by donating to some initiative. Yeah, and many things like that, small things, but they kind of launch something new like almost every week. And yeah, we are happy to help them and
Yeah.
so on.
And
Yeah.
there's there's a lot of one topic that I've got written down here that I thought that stood out to me was the
Mm-hmm.
bravery in
Mm-hmm.
creating in circumstances of conflict too,
Yeah.
because there was the Georgi Gongadze murder
Yeah. Georg Gangadze. Yes. Yes.
that I came across.
Yeah.
I should have apologized at the start for my
Sure. Sure.
pronunciation
Absolutely.
for my
It's Georgia.
pronunciation, but
It's yes. Sure. It's hard for us. Yeah. Too sometimes.
but
He was of Georgian origin.
yeah.
And so yeah, but he was he was super brave man who wasn't afraid at that time when he worked as journalist. There was many elements of dictatorship in Ukraine actually, and so he was fighting with that.
And like you mentioned earlier with the war artists, and then I've also got
Yes.
even Franco down too.
Yes.
Going back longer, like
Mm-hmm. Yes.
130 years.
Yeah,
But
years.
um, again, there's so many examples of that, and just when there's oppression and there's
Mm-hmm.
and what the constant historic attacks, whether it's on the language, and this
Yes.
again another thing, why the constant ebbing and flowing of the kind of Russian seeming desire to curtail the Ukrainian
Yes.
specific language. Um,
Yes.
and you'll have to help me with the pronunciation, but the is it the Peresopnitsya Gospel? So,
Peresopnitsky. Yes. Peresopnitsky. Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Sure.
Um, Again, which was about Princess Anastasia
Mm-hmm.
Zaslaska Olshanka. I'm sorry, I'm really making a mess of the.
Sure. It's normal. Yeah. Yeah.
But this was translating the text from the book. The book is Church Slavonic language to literary Ukrainian. So again, it
Yes.
says a bold. Back in those days, such boldness had both democratic and heretical nature, a trait often seen only among nations with a free spirit. So again, to
Mm-hmm.
go against the order of the
Yeah.
day and to risk
Yes.
your individual well-being is
Yes.
just it's phenomenally bold and brave.
Yes. Yes, it
Mm.
is. Yeah.
Um,
It also Shevchenko, the Ukrainian poet, who worked in end of 18th century, he was pretty, and he is now example of this bravery too. He was made kind of idol also by the Soviet propaganda because he was fighting against Tsarism, but against Tsar. But actually, he was fighting again not only Tsar but Russians in general. But anyway, he was also an artist and poet. But his poems was about free Ukraine, about old Ukraine, about Cossack time, about let's fight against oppression. And of course, he was imprisoned. He was not allowed to write and draw, and so on. And it's interesting that Shevchenko is something that we are studying as every year we study kids. I mean, in school studying Shevchenko, and it was something, for me it was something not really relevant, and now I understand that it was bad because he is relevant. I was school child in 90s,
yeah.
and for us kind of it wasn't such a problem. Like I mean, nobody saw such danger in Russia, and we kind of in Kiev we all spoke Russian. But now I understand that it was not right. It was not right at all, and we can do nothing about it, but we should have work better and be more attentive to all these little things that may lead to big problems.
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
It's and you said it earlier, but it's almost that almost that time becomes irrelevant in a sense, because
Yeah.
okay, you know, when we look
Yeah.
at you know, if we look at a date on a page and we say, okay, so I've got down here, you know, 1890
Yeah.
something, let's just say an arbitrary
Yeah.
number. You look at that and that feels like ancient times. But actually
Yes.
it's contextual, isn't it? So, you know, in this country we are really,
Mm-hmm.
the Second World War is probably, you know, the big example that we always have. But when we look at that, we look at black and white footage, we look at the way it's presented. And as you mentioned there, myself as a school kid, I would have had the same response. I would have gone,
Sure.
my
Oh,
granddad's,
come on.
my
Yeah.
granddad's always on about that. Whatever, it's, you know, it's fine. That has a way, that time almost disappears when that becomes contemporary. And therefore that bravery and that creativity and that willingness
Yeah.
to create beyond a lifetime, almost to think so long term,
Yeah.
you know, that just becomes timeless, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. But we also, we also discuss what people in London did in 1842. Like we are discussing, like, so these people went to bomb shelter and then got up and went to work. Really? Yeah, they did. And they also brought their mothers brought their children to remote places far from London. And so we're talking about this too. And what artists did, they needed a lot of informational these posters about what it was grow food. And yeah, it's interesting. And we also studying that. And yeah, really, Second World War is so close to us. You're right. It's an interesting phenomenon. But in Ukraine, we say like we have same problem, actually,
Hmm.
same problem with people who try to actually to erase us.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
still, and they have this idea, and they had it before, and they have it now, and they still trying to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's, you know, it's unthinkable.
yeah,
And kind of, you know, it's very hard to comprehend when you haven't experienced that
yeah,
too,
yeah.
which is why I think art and literature are just so vital. And song, you know, song is something I wanted to touch upon because
Mm-hmm.
there's a,
Really?
is there a lot of musical heritage is very important in Ukraine, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Mm.
sure, absolutely. I mean, folk songs are something, yeah, really like from lullabies to songs that like warriors were singing when they are marching and something. Yeah, they are important because it's something that you cannot really cannot restrict.
Hmm.
Yet people will still you can't not allow them to make their magazines or newspapers in Ukrainian, but they still gonna sing.
I came across, let me find it in my notes.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's
Mm-hmm.
Roger Leo, an American composer. He
Yeah.
reworked the Russian national anthem with the sound of bombs, you know, and that's, you know, that's the sound. I listened to the track because this was a, you know, to try to illustrate the savagery of what's
Mm-hmm.
happening there. There's something about, you know, that stay. I listened to it and it stayed with me for, you know, 24 hours. I still felt the kind of unsettling, and there's
Mm-hmm.
just, that was something that no other art form could have conjured within me, you know, and it did, and
Mm-hmm.
and it was awful, you know, and that was a very secondhand experience, but actually that was a very powerful piece of art.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so there's that side of music, you know, and then but then like
Mm-hmm.
you said, there's the thing, you know, things like oral traditions that are passed down on
Mm-hmm.
generations that didn't have the liberty
Sure.
of making books and things that would stand the
Yes.
test of time, which is also
Yes.
vitally important, and poetry also.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because people were not all, everyone knew how to read and write, and so yeah, that was yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
And
For
sadly, people are also
yeah.
desensitized to image these days. You know, so
Mm-hmm.
because we see that's one of the downsides is that we see so much graphic imagery now with the internet
Mm-hmm.
that actually there's a, you know, people very quickly either forget or block out or become
Yes.
resilient in that sense,
Mm-hmm.
to other people's trauma and find reasons not to engage with that.
Yeah, that's true, and yeah, what can we do about that? We can us, especially I see it on Twitter.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, we not stopping. We are still, I mean, Ukrainian community, especially who speaks good English good enough, and we're trying to tell what's going on all the time, and definitely not going to stop. And yeah, it's great that some it's great that some people are really great supporters of Ukraine, and they can still be sensitive. And yeah, but now we're talking in February of 2024. Now I think it's also a critical moment with this support, and we don't know how war is going to be further. And of course, we really need this support. So it's actually also our task to find new ways to tell about ourselves.
Mm.
Yeah, and be loud and overcome this.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's what I'm thinking about.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
And there was the poster project by Yurko Gutsulak. Is that
Yes.
yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Again, this was about music, and the quote said that the best way to experience a city is to explore songs dedicated to it. A city that fosters
Yeah,
inspiration and love can proudly curate an enhanced personal playlist. And
absolutely.
talks about the history of Kiev and being celebrated by poets and composers, and
Yeah,
it's yeah, that's the projects like that. Just
yeah,
they make me want to contribute and help.
yeah, yeah. Yurko Hutsulak is brilliant Ukrainian a designer, absolutely phenomenal. I think I would compare him. I don't know, with Paul Rand. I think he's so influential among us. He started early when we early. I mean, in beginning of 2000s, because you were kind of in Ukraine. We're kind of late with many things, you know. I mean, the design in design with because in 90s we were in survival mode. Actually, it was no time, no money, no space to make good design, to make some nice design projects. That were people just were trying to survive, literally.
Yeah.
And yeah, but of course there was great works, but not much, because commercially there wasn't much space for it. And like, to make great works, you need events, which you can make posters and, like, you know, something. But in the beginning of 2000, yeah, he really became really powerful, like engine of movement, making really great works. And I was happy to work for him, like illustrator for his project. And yeah, and he's really deep designer. This quotation about songs is really great. Yeah,
Yeah. I mean,
yeah,
to go back to the survival thing, that's the thing, isn't it?
yeah,
That's when creativity becomes creativity in the very primal sense. You are getting
yeah,
by, you are reconfiguring, you are making the best of all of
yes,
it to
absolutely,
survive. And
yeah,
that's
yeah, yeah,
again, this is my thing. I think sometimes people are very quick when I bring up creativity in
yeah,
conversations that are deeper than being artistic, people's backs
yes,
initially go up until then that's when I have to explain what I mean by creativity. And it's
yes,
not,
mm-hmm,
I'm not referring to any one art form or design or anything. I'm
yeah,
talking about
yes.
the reason that humans are still on this planet. You know,
Yeah, 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 yeah. To
that's
make something out of nothing, actually. Yeah, to make to invent something. Yeah, I really love your definition of
yeah.
creativity.
Yeah, and
Yeah, yeah,
it's
it,
to go back to that simple, to have ideas that have value. That's that, like,
yeah,
or applied imagination. These are two definitions that I use in the book, that
yes,
when you strip it right down, that's what creativity
yeah,
is.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
There was
Great. Yeah.
something I wanted to talk about was symbolism, because
Mm-hmm.
as I worked through the alphabet, the project,
Yeah.
there was numerous things that really made a mark for me. The hedgehogs, is that the right way of putting it? The
Yeah, hedgehogs. Yeah, this. I mean, made of iron, right?
yeah, the anti-tank
Yeah, yeah, anti-tank.
structures.
Yeah, yeah,
This
yeah.
that blew my mind when I saw
Yes,
the typographic character likened to these hedgehogs, and then what that
yes,
the thought process that that triggered in my mind. Because
yes.
of all the things I read, that maybe that was the one that stayed with me the most because of the severe shape, and
Mm-hmm.
I was in the street here in Salisbury. I was researching in a cafe for this project and reading that, and
Yes,
I couldn't look at the streets in the same way. I saw these hedgehogs and I pictured what they
yes,
would look like here in this street, and it just
yeah,
it made me feel on one hand so fortunate that I had to imagine that, but on the other
yes,
hand, it made me feel compassion for you guys that this is a part of your everyday lives
yeah,
to a degree. I was
yeah,
this is not unfamiliar. Um, I don't really know where I'm going with this as a question, but it was just
yeah, yeah, yeah,
it was so powerful and so symbolic, and then to see that used in that way within this alphabet is quite close to
yeah.
genius, in my opinion.
Very cool. Yeah. Also, I remember when war started, my friend and colleague Olga Terefeeva, we have a group of chat of industrial designers who like make chairs and I don't know furniture. And when the war started, she wrote like guys like industrial designers, so we making hedgehogs, like you can go to this workshop like and make them or like do something. So they designers became makers. They were it very simple structures, but still when war started, so many um, designers started to design for war. For example, fashion designers, yeah, they have tasked to design some pieces of clothes that will work and so on. And for example, uniform for women and many other stuff. And for example, clothes that it's easy to wear when for injured soldiers. Something that, sorry, hard to explain. Then you can more easily take off with buttons. Help me, Ben. I'm just. I
um,
mean, they were designing like clothes
hmm,
for special occasions. It reminds me Papanek book Design for Real World. Yeah, because so we were hit by such circumstances, and people stopped with making chairs and started making Czech hedgehogs. Yeah,
that's just yeah, and I hope that will. You know, the thing is, I doubt that my listeners need to have creativity validated,
yeah,
but
yeah,
I do hope that this is something that the people who, like me, have had days where we will sit there and, you know, the work's not coming in or we're working on a project that just feels
yeah,
utterly meaningless. I hope
yeah.
that this will shine a light on the skills and the power that we have in visual communication and creativity, because if that's not an illustration of the power, then I don't know what is, you know.
Thank you. I'm really, really, really glad that you have this intention. I'm so happy that really, at least we have you who are listening, but our listeners too. I really hope, guys, you will find this interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And you know, it's funny because I'm a recent father. You know, my children just turned 4. I have
yeah,
twins,
yeah,
and from the earliest age, I you know tell them I like to try to paint a picture that they are what they're fortunate with. You know, why they
yeah,
have good fortune and how not everyone does. So, for example, when we pass
yeah,
someone who's maybe in a wheelchair in the street, and I don't
yeah,
just say, right, move to one side, on we go.
yeah,
I explain the
yeah.
reason why we stood to one side and why that's really important, and why we have
Mm-hmm.
to acknowledge that person and understand the misfortune that they've had that they haven't yet had, and they're 4, so they're not going to comprehend that yet, but they do pick up things, and
Mm-hmm.
they will now stop in the street and say, you know, Daddy, that person had a wheelchair, and we'll talk about that. And
Yeah.
as they grow and as they get older, I will very much, you know, when they're over the right age, I will make sure they hear this conversation. I will make sure that they acknowledge the things that are going on in the world. I want them to be attuned. I want
Yeah.
them to be sensitive, and I want them to recognize the privilege, but also the responsibility that we should have with this privilege.
Yeah.
That's my point. I think, and this is, this is a small thing. I don't know how many people will hear this podcast. Truth is, I don't particularly care. I hope it's a lot, but I'm doing this
Yeah.
because like I said about the trying to picture the street with the hedgehogs.
Yes.
I'm a highly sensitive person, and what I can't escape is that responsibility. It's hardwired in me. From an early age, I want to make a difference where I can, and that at times
Mm-hmm.
feels like a heavy burden, but it's really not. It's a gift.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's a bit of a ramble, but I hope I hope you understand
Great.
what I'm trying to
Yeah.
say.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
Um,
fantastic. That's really good.
but
That's
also what a privilege to have this conversation. I was
mm-hmm.
telling some people on my dog walk this morning. We
Mm-hmm.
asked how, what's the plan for the day, kind of thing, and I mentioned
Yeah.
this conversation, and people were very interested, and we had deep conversations as we always do on the dog walk. And but yeah,
Great.
it is a privilege, and it is
Yeah.
to bring some tiny contribution
Great.
to a cause that affects us all. Because let's face it, you said it yourself, this could happen to any of us.
Yeah, actually, yeah. What I wanted, since I have this opportunity, what I wanted to say about Ukraine, and I want to ask people just not stop supporting and just sometimes check news about us and maybe repost something, and maybe um, just don't ignore what's going on here. Yeah, because it's very hard. It's very hard. We all people. It's hard to bear this,
Hmm.
but yeah. Um, but still, please don't forget about us.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think it's critical
we've
because I believe that the reason that it feels so hard is because we have to feel that to act. You know,
yes.
every time I suffer a personal low in in
Mm-hmm.
in response to something that I've seen or I worry about, like the climate crisis, for example,
Yes.
when I get back to an equilibrium, I come back to that equilibrium with more resolve than before and more ideas about how I might contribute to that. So I do believe that there's a necessary amount of pain that I have to feel as a human because I have to
Mm-hmm.
help. If we don't help,
Yes.
then we're all going to sooner or later suffer. So I think that we have to feel that hurt. So I would also add to that people, it's about you have to manage the exposure, but I think you have to have the exposure.
Mm-hmm. But it's not that hard to help actually. We can all have informationally. We can all share important things,
Hmm.
and it works. And it's important. It's important. It's for us. We feel support, and if people are sharing news about what's going on, and like you make some little research about and I think there are a lot of information in English, some little research, and maybe know something for themselves and share something that they found interesting, like Ukrainian letters, a special font. So maybe for designers it's to look at contemporary Ukrainian typeface designers, or um, graphic designers, or agencies, or just something which relate to you, or illustrators, for example, which we have fantastic illustrators. And it's amazing. I'm so happy that you made your research and you found out so many things, and somehow we are I made you a little bit in love with Ukraine, which and it brings me so much joy, and it will make a big impact actually, I think. And it's kind of, as an activist, it's my task uh, to gradually to help people to fall in love with Ukraine, because there are so many beautiful things.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, we had no time to tell about this. And somehow, even I'm kind of ashamed to say that we haven't um, didn't knew a lot about ourselves too, about history of Ukrainian design. Unfortunately, it's not the things I learned in my art school. We didn't really study that, and it's very bad. And now I'm doing this.
So, one thing I wanted to talk about was imagination and optimism. And there's a particular example that stood out, and it was how do I pronounce it? Mariupol?
Mariupol, yes.
Yeah.
Mariupol, yes. City of Mariupol, yes.
That was right on the front line.
Yes, and it's occupied. Yeah.
Yes. So, there's what I got through this project, the alphabet that I keep going back to, was the kind of the determination and to see, the sense that we will one day have this city back, and
Yes.
that I think first for something better to exist, first we have to be able to imagine it.
Yes.
Do you agree?
Yes. Yeah.
And we have to create that vision, and also then the optimism to fight, to move towards
absolutely, yeah,
making that happen.
Yes.
That is something that has to be prominent among the Ukrainian people.
Yeah, that they imagine, yeah. And for example, Crimea, also it was annexed, it was captured, but still, even now, there are people who live in Crimea all this time, and I know these people because also from community designer, there are people who still feel themselves as Ukrainian. They are like they are Ukrainian in this totally occupied environment, and they are imagining, they don't lose faith, even in circumstances when it's super hard. Yeah, and I imagine, and we do all the time. I'm just talking about Crimea because it's bigger example. It's a beautiful peninsula, which actually is land of Crimean Tatars, who were not how to say it, who were forcibly taken away from there in like many years ago, and gradually came back, and now they are oppressed there also. So it's actually their land, right? Their land, and yeah, it's what you're saying is very important. We all are imagining that Crimea is going to be a safe place for them when they can develop their culture and live their lives as they deserve.
Yeah, and again, it draws that line, like we touched upon, between particular art forms and creativity in the survival sense. I guess it's the same thing. You have to imagine the world that you want to exist and keep working towards that, which, and that's where imagination, and that's why I wish, again, there was a greater light shone on imagination as a really important thing in education, and not to relinquish this as we become adults, because too many people do, particularly in countries like my own, where there is complacency. It's all too easy to go, oh yeah, but that's what you need to get a job, and we forget about these fundamental human needs and skills.
Yeah, good point. Yeah.
What I will say is that this is continually inspiring to me and galvanizing, and I know that I'm not alone in feeling this way when I see what you guys are going through and the amazing things you're doing in response to it. But just this, this continued determination to create and to keep making, which is how this conversation came about, beyond heroic.
Yeah, I even can give you even more, like it's a very strange example when many people flee, politically active people flee in the 20s when Ukraine was taken over by Soviets, and in after Second World War also. And what they were doing when they became kind of refugees in other countries, they were building Ukraine in free world. So in Canada, in US, in Argentina, in UK, everywhere they live, they for them there was no hope for independent Ukraine. Actually, it was only dream and imagination, and they can only imagine this blue and yellow flag, for example, in 70s. it was kind of, it sounds very impossible, but they still continue to believe in that. It's unbelievable. It's this diaspora, and they preserve their heritage, traditions, and all that language, of course. And it's when I first heard about this Ukrainian free world. It's amazing concept. It's like still having your country, but within you and within your community, and working towards making it true. And finally, in late 80s and beginning of 90s, it became true. Like it's unbelievable how they did it and what they did, and yeah, it's all very very complex processes, but the fact that people carried this Ukraine with them when they went away, and now all these people who left Ukraine for safety reason, they also kind of making their own little Ukraine, because of course hoping to come back. They are making communities and helping each other, and for example celebrating Christmas in Ukrainian way with singing special Christmas carols. And yeah, for them it's very important. And yeah,
it's really beautiful and
yeah,
so important. Yeah, well, I mean, I think I've covered everything
thank you.
and more I wanted to talk about.
Great.
Yeah, so
Thank you so much.
no, it's absolutely all my pleasure. It's and maybe you could send me
Yeah,
some link. What I'd like to do is share some places that
sure,
people can go to help. And I mean, maybe there's not. I don't,
absolutely.
if you could, if you could maybe gather a handful of places, I will share the ones you sent me, like the alphabet and things.
Sure, yeah.
But I would love to send some go-to actionable places for people
Okay,
to
absolutely.
pick up from this
Yeah,
conversation, which I'm sure people will want to.
sure.
A heartfelt thank you to Olya Protasova for taking the time to talk at such an unimaginably trying, traumatic time of life. It means the world, if anyone else from Ukraine is listening to this show, all you can say is thank you, because the strength that you people are showing at a time like this to continue creating and just showing how powerful creativity and belonging and all the beautiful things that come from these human fundamental skills of ours is just mind-bending. It really is. It's a reason for everyone else to get out of bed in the morning and do something and contribute and remember how lucky we are if we don't have to live through such an experience. Sadly, that's not the reality in Ukraine just now, so I hope any of the listeners will join me in trying to share the work of Olya and other amazing creators from Ukraine. I'm going to share some links that Olya sent me in the show notes that will take you to places where you can see that work and you can help somehow. You could share, some of the work. You could shout about it. You could contact people and help. Think how you can help, because they need all of it just now. So there you have it. I hope you took even just a modicum of the inspiration that I took from that chat, which was, I wasn't exaggerating at the start of the show when I said it's one of the most powerful conversations I will ever have, one of the most moving. And it really does connect you with a real story that isn't just the news, that isn't just social media, It's real people, real lives, real struggles. So let me know your thoughts. Contact Olya. Please do give her a follow and share and contribute and support. And that's all there is to say, really. Big thank you to the founding sponsor of the show, Illustration X, who make all this stuff possible, these kind of conversations possible. That is also incredible. So thank you to those guys. Go and check them out, illustrationx.com, or the global range of illustration and animation portfolios. The Creative Condition book has now gone to press. It's going to be out on the 28th of March. The Kickstarter guys are going to be getting it before then, in the early part of March. I'm going to have to stick up a pre-order link before long for everyone else, and I hope you can consider getting involved. I have used a few of Olya's words from our initial conversation towards the back end of this book in a chapter called Which Future? It's not the last thing I'm going to be doing with the Ukraine on the show. Far from it. I want to feature more people. I'm going to be writing a piece over the next week or so about another quite heart-rending story from the war in Ukraine that Olya sent me just after our chat. More details on that to follow. All being well, that'll be next week's show. But that's all from me. Thank you so much, guys. Do give us a subscription and a review if you get the chance, and do spread the word. This show means a lot to me in this cause of creativity and helping people to understand and embrace theirs. Cheers, guys. Thank you for listening. Have a good week.